That's why the farmers market model is so fabulous, because you go and speak to the farmer, and you go, right, okay, and the farmer can say, look, next week we're going to have these this new variety of garlic's going to be coming on. You should try it. It's a bit bitey, but you'll love it, etc. It's that kind of connection that is really important. And the more we become kind of disconnected from our food, the more we kind of lose the connection in our heart of what food is for us, and it really is that soil and farmer and consumer connection.
From wherever we are, we acknowledge the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia, recognising their continuing connection to this land, its waterways, the stars in the skies since time immemorial. We pay our respects to the elders, knowledge holders, and to all the generations of First Nations peoples who have nurtured their unceded sovereign lands for over 80,000 years and continue to do so today.
G'day, I'm your host Charlie Arnott, an 8th generational Australian regenerative farmer. And in this podcast series, I'll be diving deep and exploring my guests' unique perspectives on the world so you can apply their experience and knowledge to cultivate your own transition to a more regenerative way of life.
Welcome to the Regenerative Journey with your host Charlie Arnott.
G'day, Jarrod. Jarrod Roush. Welcome to the Regenerative Journey, and welcome to the first episode 1 of season 9. Welcome to the show, Jarrod.
Yeah, great. It's good to be here with you, Charlie.
I'm away. I'm not at Burra at the moment. As well, listeners may not know, our farm is not so far away from Canberra, and Canberra is where you're working, and you're the program lead. Just make sure I got this right, of the sustainable ag for the ACT government, which is amazing because only 2 weeks ago I didn't even know that position existed, or that. And then in the last 2 weeks we've really got our shit together, and we're working together on season 9. And you've got a forum coming up, which we'll get to. But Jarrod, what I wanted to start with is I wanted to understand a bit about your own regenerative journey. First, I think that's important to make sure our listeners and I know a bit more about you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, well, I won't go on too much, but I guess I grew up in Adelaide. My grandparents were the result of the Depression, and had a huge double block garden with vegetables and fruit trees packed from one end to the other, and I grew up in that kind of a space. At age 19, I started managing a local Indigenous plant nursery in the north of Adelaide, and I purchased my first farm kind of in the mid-north of South Australia, on the edge of the Barossa Valley, close to a little town called Greenock. And yeah, I guess I've been farming regeneratively since 1991, so it's been a while. But been all over the place on the Mornington Peninsula, and been farming in a little valley called the Goongerah Valley since 2002. My partner and I have a couple of little farms there. One's more of a fruit block, and the other one with more permaculture kind of setup. Very intensive, and then we also have just up the road a more regenerative grazing block, which we're really working on agroforestry systems, and working on trying to integrate fencing with agroforestry to create shade and shelter for our livestock.
So that's right. So do you own those blocks? If it's agroforestry, is a lease block that you're sort of just working on?
It's in East Gippsland, it's in East Gippsland. So I drive down there pretty well every Friday, and head back to the farm and do my farm stuff. Then buzz back up to Canberra to work on the sustainable ag side for ACT. We own those blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're familiar with Rowan Reed's work then with agroforestry?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. With his Heartwood book, and
Yes.
yeah, he's been a great inspiration. Actually, I use a little bit of I use some of his guards, his tree tube guards, which played around with all sorts of different guard systems for my agroforestry. But I've come up with something which I think works really well now. It's integrated with electric fence systems with the grunt tape, and it's a really good one. It's a
Good. Well, I want to know more, Jarrod, because we're for lots of reasons. But yeah, no, maybe offline we can chat more about that because I'm trying to
yeah,
think how I
yeah,
how
yeah,
I
yeah.
establish oak trees in paddocks, in isolation and in clumps, and any way I can without having to just roll out a whole lot of wire and so on. So, but we can talk
Yeah.
offline about that one. That's fantastic. Tell me now what we're here to talk about, and I guess just for the listeners. You guys have kindly sponsored this season 9 of the Regenerative Journey, and what we're hoping to encourage people to attend and understand and get along to is on the 2nd of May, your Canberra Local Region Forum, which I'll get you to explain there, but I'm pretty excited. I can't be there, unfortunately, but I wish I could be because there's some amazing speakers, which I'll get you to sort of run through. And yeah, give us a bit of a sense of why you guys have put it on, who's actually putting it on, because I know it's a bit of a collaboration there, and who do we expect to sort of see? Because there's some really good, well-known speakers there.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Charlie. So, yeah, I guess the idea behind the forum is for for there to be able for us to be able to develop systems to build direct to market, and when we have this kind of two system agricultural approach, which is happening, which is really big farms that are in the commodity space, that are basically having to sell out to or sell their product to the best price they can get. Um, Effectively, there's no way to distinguish the difference between regeneratively grown produce and standard conventional produce. Now, and I would like to initially just say, when I say regenerative, I'll just define that as being making incremental improvements across all areas of farm management. That's what we're talking about. It's not an esoteric. It's not. It's basically it's just a commitment to making incremental improvements. And here in the ACT, we're working on gathering baseline data through a whole of farm planning system, which helps that process. But taking a step back, if you're a local regenerative farmer and you're working hard to regenerate all aspects of your landscape, your biodiversity, your soils, your water, et cetera, animal welfare, um, there's no real way to distinguish your product against a conventionally grown product. And that's in no way trying to put any conventional product down. I know that that's the bones of our food system. However, there is an aspect of the agricultural system which is moving in a direction towards regenerative, and very intentionally looking to see how they can make those incremental improvements. So, what we were trying to do with the forum is to see how can we embed the embedded value of that regeneratively grown produce. How do we gain that value for both the regenerative farmer as well as the consumer, the local ACT consumer? So we're trying to build the local food system and develop up these direct to market systems so that the embedded value in that produce can be realised for the farmer, and also the consumer can get access to it. And so we're looking at how do we do those things. Now, some of those things could be, CSAs. We know that so like Sam Johnson and Sid, they've got their own little brand that they have their own butcher shop and smokehouse. They box that up, they take it directly to Canberra, direct to market. Other CSA systems like we have in the ACT is like Southern Harvest, where it's a cooperative where people can sell smaller quantities into the Southern Harvest cooperative, and then it can be boxed up and moved around. And so that's I guess the idea. The environment and the nutritional integrity that comes from regeneratively grown food is different. But when it goes into the standard commodity, it's lost. There's no way of being able to differentiate between, on the supermarket shelf, between one steak or another, or one potato or another. But if you follow it back, there really is a difference in the embedded values for environment and for nutrition, animal welfare, et cetera, which come from that regeneratively grown food. So I guess that seems to me to be one of the big issues for local regenerative farmers is how do we support farmers to be able to build up these direct to market systems, and that's what the forum is really about. So the first part of the day is to identify why is there an embedded value in regeneratively grown food, and how do we talk about that? And so we've got Walter Jenner, who's going to be talking around, he talks around the soil sponge, but he's also talking about how when foods are grown using really integral biological systems, that the plants that are grown in the soil, they act differently from conventionally grown foods, and they embed into themselves a nutritional integrity which is quite different. And when our soils and our biodiversity is treated in a different way from standard conventional agriculture, we have these environmental values for water quality, and for improving soil carbon and soil biology, et cetera, et cetera. And so I guess that's the bones of what the forum is. And we're always looking for different ways that we can support local farmers to move into this more incremental improvements across their farm. But on the other side is, how do we help the farmer to be able to gain resilience and profitability, which helps them to realise the benefit of that the food that they're growing.
It sounds quite unique. I mean, I know the ACT government is a smaller government territory, etc. Compared to the states, but I can't imagine, and I can't remember, like a government supporting this sort of initiative elsewhere. It feels quite unique. I don't know, again, because of the size, it's probably can be a bit more coordinated and strategic, but I can't imagine the New South Wales DPI kind of going, right, we're going to have a forum about encouraging this. Maybe I'm wrong. And I'm just not in the loop. But I'm really excited that the ACT government have got on board this. This is. I mean, it's good for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, and this particular forum is really focusing the whole of the Canberra region. So it goes up to where you are on your farm, down to Bombala Delegate down in the south, across to the coast, over in Young. It's this whole kind of bubble. If it's closer for you to drive to Canberra than it is to Sydney, then you're in. And so and effectively, if you're a local grower, Canberra would be that market. That would be where you can direct to market. And so we're trying to develop up this local food system which builds food security, and also there's some benefits for a society to know that their farmers around them are being supported, to be able to manage the landscape in a way that you really are making those improvements to the landscape and to animal welfare, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I guess there's value for the farmer, isn't there, that is actually producing, as you say, doing a really good job with nutritionally dense food, whether it's veggies, animals, whatever, and then having to dump it into the take the price, whatever's on offer in the commodity markets, is pretty disheartening, knowing that they've put so much work into it, and being able to be direct, essentially, and sell the sizzle, not just the sausage, like they've actually got a really good story to tell about its produce, and there's value in that. And that creates better value for them in terms of dollars, for those products. But the value really is there's a lot of value in that for the consumers, the eaters, who feel very much more comfortable about A, the nutrition of the food, B, the value of it, for themselves and their family, from a dollar point of view, but also, knowing that they're supporting farmers, and creating those relationships. I think it's, and this is not a new concept, of course, direct to market, but I think as commodity prices fluctuate as they do, that's just the way they do. Some commodities are on the up at the moment, some are down in terms of farming. But one thing is trending up, and that's cost of production. So yes, for the smaller producers whose scale, they haven't quite got the scale to sort of make the profit from just a scale point of view. They're limited as to what they do. They need to be able to sell more dollars per kilo, essentially, don't they? So this is really essential.
Yeah, I think it is. And I mean, part of what the forum's intention is to bring people together to see how they can collaborate. I mean, in the old days, the early days of Australia, in white Australia, cooperatives were just the norm. They were everywhere. Basically agriculture was all about the cooperatives of farmers pulling together and working together to be able to process and market their produce and get it out there. And that's kind of, that's bit by bit, everybody's become separated and they're competitive instead of cooperative. And I think that part of this regenerative movement is that farmers are getting together, they're supporting each other, they're pulling the capacities together, and together they're quite strong. And to build local brands, which we're sort of trying to envisage this concept of a local CBR brand that can be stamped on a box, and local Regen stamp on there, and for that to have some meaning, which can be traced back to the local farmer, and whether that be through local pack, whether it be through farmers markets, whether it be through CSAs, through Southern Harvest, food distribution cooperative, we've got all of these already in place, and but it really just needs to get to this next stage where farmers go, you know what? Instead of me being the price taker, I can be the price maker. We can do this together. I know that if I get together with this farmer, and this farmer, we can pool our resources and we can actually have something which is quite strong. And I think that's what we need to be able to build that economic resilience that then feeds into and supports this regenerative process of how do we build that their farm landscapes and their farm businesses to be truly regenerative.
There's certainly, strength in numbers. Jarrod, give us a bit of a rundown of who else. You mentioned Walter Yana there before. Who else is speaking that you want to let everyone know about?
Yeah, so we've got Diane Haggerty, who's WA Australian of the Year. Diane's got a huge farm out in the wheat belt, and doing some incredible work there. We've got Tammy Jonas, who's also a real legend in that space, talking about the shutting down of abattoirs everywhere, and small abattoirs being basically shut, and for people who would love to be able to take their animals to somewhere local, end up having to cart their animals for hundreds of kilometres, which has some real issues for animal welfare, plus also economically. It's just it's a hard thing for small farmers to have that. So Tammy's going to talk to that. We've got Lucy Ridge, who's is a key member for the Southern Harvest Food Cooperative that's here in the ACT. We've also got Cressida Cairns, who's a sheep dairy and cheesier cheesemaker. Yeah, that's right. And yeah, she's really helping for that, to create that secure kind of local direct to market as well. And we've got Adam Lillyman, who's a local ACT farmer who has gone through the process of succession. And I think that's another really big part of this is that when younger family members are coming on to enter into that succession plan, they really need to be able to go, okay, how can we diversify? And if we do diversify, then how do we market that? And they've set up right out the front of their place a little shop front that people come in. That's all the honesty box, but it's a really great little farm gate supplies. We have another local young fella as well, Fred McGrath, who's the president of our RLA. He's done the same thing, and it's so exciting to be able to see young people who are going, you know what, the only way I'm going to make any profit and have any fun in this process is to be able to go down this different journey, and it is really different. Otherwise, it's like, why would I do it? Why would I struggle like I've seen my parents do, etc. So, but we have Sam Johnson from Boxgum, and we have Vince Heffernan as well, both of who produce very high quality food, and who market back into the ACT. So the idea is that we bring these folks together. We have the opportunity for them to explain what's worked for them and what opportunities might be, and hopefully we can inspire some ideas for people who are keen to get involved but just not sure how to get a foot in the door. And I would encourage any younger folks who are thinking of that succession when with their parents' farm. This is something. There's an opportunity for you to get together with other people to go, what's worked for you and what could potentially work for me? People who are interested in setting up a local abattoir, people who are looking at food hubs, wash and packs, CSAs. You can imagine it's everything ag in that space of how do we take it from the farm and get it onto the plate of the ACT consumer, who, by the way, is super keen to get local food and just can't get it. So they can go to the local farmers markets, which are brilliant here in the ACT, and they have a real history of being able to do that. But if you can't get there on a Saturday morning, then there's an issue. So there's got to be other ways that we can kind of add on top of that to keep building it, because the more we can do it, the more that just becomes the norm, rather than having to. And look, I'm not knocking the supermarkets. It's definitely the main way that we get food. But what I'm saying is, for food security, I think it's a great idea for us to be able to build up this local system that complements the big supermarkets as well.
And it just gives people options, doesn't it? There might be some weeks where, whether it's economic decision or convenience or whatever, they'll go to the supermarket, and there's other times when they can get to the farmers market, or even better, sort of get to the farm and have more of a relationship with them. So you also, Lucy Ridge, she's also involved.
Yeah, so Lucy Ridge is she's I guess she's somebody who's really kind of pulls together the Southern Harvest Food Cooperative.
Yeah.
And yeah, she's a really interesting, very passionate person in this space for the ACT. She's a real champion for the direct to market, and we just wanted to make sure that she gets a really a place there to be able to express her passion for it, and potentially what she thinks could happen for the future. And so yeah, we're just lifting everybody up, pop them together, and go, what can you come up with? Tell us why it's important, and then tell us how we can make it happen.
And Jenny Bell's involved. I saw her name. I've done work with Jenny for many years. She's great.
Yeah, Jenny's she's very generously letting us access her artwork, which is so we will have that installed at the UC Convention Centre, University of Canberra Convention Centre, and that's these are close-ups of soil microbes, and so it builds this understanding that that soil is not just dirt that as a structure for your plants to grow in. It's actually a living organism itself that provides the conduit to be able to get all of the nutrients together, and that's the biology that brings the nutrient integrity into our soils, into our foods, into our plants.
Tell me, just before because there's a couple of other things we want to discuss just outside of the forum in particular. Anyone else? It's a bit of a collaboration with a few organisations, and it's sponsored. Do you want to just give us a rundown on who's actually involved? Any shout out to any other members of your team you want to give us? Any special?
Yeah, so I guess the event is funded with the ACT government as well as the Federal Drought Fund. So that's the
Yeah,
Commonwealth Federal Drought Fund. They've been amazing all the way through, and their whole aim is building resilience and to drought and to shocks. And they've been incredibly supportive all the way through for us to be able to use this more of a scientific approach to regenerative agriculture, where we gather baseline data and then we build on that through practice change, and then we come back and we measure. And we go, how are we going? Are we actually making those incremental improvements? How can we assist to be able to make that to happen? So the Federal Drought Fund's partly helping us with this, and look, I've got there's Jenny Cumberland, and we've got a Regen Ag officer, Aaron Fay, who's another local fella, Mary Bell, and yeah, we've got in our little team. I'm so blessed to be able to work with great people.
Tell me, and it's on, just that I'll repeat there, 2nd of May from 9 to 5. So
Yep.
it's a full day there at the University of Canberra. Is there somewhere, how do people sort of find out more? Website? We'll put the website on, or any links in the show notes, but you want to sort of let people know how they can find out more?
Yeah, so it's through Humanitics. That's how you book, and possibly it might be best for you to go directly through yours if your channels, Charlie. They can come and they can press on the link to get in.
Sure.
It's a fully catered event, and we've asked for the chef at UC to source local regenerative food for all of the menu. So I guess that was something we wanted to make sure that we're walking the talk, and so that everything which is going to be there as in the food space is going to be local produce and coming from regenerative farms. So so you'll be able to find it one way or another. And if you just go through the Humanitics, you'll be able to look up the CBR Local Region Forum, and you'll find it.
Find your way to some tickets there, and it's I guess it's attracting farmers who are thinking about going down this track, or ones that already are doing it that sort of want to create some more networks and maybe fine tune what they're doing, and I guess for also eaters to understand what is the potential and what they can help support. Any other sort of people you're targeting?
The others really are. We're looking at across Australia. We're inviting anyone in both Commonwealth or state food kind of security space, looking at economic development opportunities for local regional councils, how they can support this, because it is it's a sector that needs to be supported. We're looking for people who are in the food industry, so it might be the local little supermarket on the corner, the greengrocers, local butchers, et cetera, to be able to go, how do we get this? How do we get involved in this? So we have a little butcher. I won't say the name of it, but we have a little butcher here in the ACT that he has a farmer who a regenerative farmer who has free range pork, and he's got that direct, and so people who come along to that little butcher, they can go, well, we know exactly where that produce has come from, and we know the story, and it's been they've been sourcing from this guy for a long time, and that creates security for the farmer, and it creates this story which really helps to so important to have a heart connection with the food you're eating, and to be able to know the story. That's why the farmers market model is so fabulous, because you go and speak to the farmer, and you go, right, okay, and the farmer can say, look, next week we're probably going to have these this new variety of garlic's going to be coming on. You should try it. It's a bit bitey, but you'll love it, etc. It's that kind of connection that is really important. That in the old days, that was just normal. Whatever you didn't grow in your backyard, you got from the fellow who was just down the road. It was, or the local honey was just from 3 doors down, etc. And this was what it was to be human in the past. And the more we become, kind of disconnected from our food, the more we kind of lose the connection in our heart of what food is for us, and it really is that that soil and farmer and consumer connection.
Yeah, let's help create a new normal. I think that's something that I'm sure will fall out of the forum. Just conscious of the time, Jarrod, and also that you mentioned before we press the go button, you got a few other projects. I wanted to hear about dung beetles in particular in your program or programs. Tell me about them. We love our dung beetles, and always fascinated with the species and the seasonality of them and their activities.
Yes, yeah. So just very quickly, we have a program we've been running for a couple of years that we're helping to naturalise species that are not already been naturalised in the area, and so we're working with local dung beetle distributors to be able to help us to be able to access them from outside of the region and bring them in. And we've got a dedicated group of farmers who are have committed to not using the drenches which kill the dung beetles, and working with dung beetle friendly practices. So that's a really important thing. At the moment, there's no winter active species that are naturalised in the Canberra area, and so we're really focusing on the winter active species, and so that's a really big part of it. Look, we've got multi-species trials which we're working with ANU on for with 6 different farmers. That's going to be running for the next 4 years. We've got dams to wetlands where we're fencing off dams, we're getting off dam water troughs, and we're installing a whole array of aquatic species to be able to clean the water and build biodiversity. We're doing a fodder and shelter and shade shelter belts, which will also help to break paddocks up into smaller paddocks for rotational grazing. And so we've got a whole range of really interesting activities that are happening and programs that are happening for the ACT farmer. So I mean, if there's folks from outside of the region that are interested, by all means, make contact with us and let us know your thoughts. We often run seminars. Tonight we've got our Autumn Farmers Forum, where we've got Dan Kettridge talking around nutritional integrity. And yeah, we've had Colin Seiss recently coming out, and he came and gave us a talk at one of our forums, and we've been up to David Marsh's place, and taken a whole group up there last year, and yeah, we're really trying to build this momentum that actually it's doable. It's financially doable and it's doable practically. And but the other half of it is this direct to market. What do you do once you've actually produced this amazing food?
Well, I've got to commend you guys for doing that. Like as you say, dual purpose is that how do we produce the food and what practices do we put in place, but also then once we have, what do we go and do with it? Well, if you guys ever need, excuse me, a site, a venue, contribution or involvement in trials or whatever, let us know. Whether we're sort of too far out of the zone or not, but whatever, we'll definitely keep in touch because, I more of that, the more the merrier, in my view. Because these things have a bit of a habit of creating their own momentum, don't they? Like the more people comes on board, the more intel you collect, the more ideas, the more collaborations, and these things sort of sometimes end up going a bit exponentially because of the momentum. And also, I guess, what's in your favour is the diversity of the produce that, around Canberra and Bora. You've got wine, you've got beef, you've got, wool, sheep, what you name it. We don't do mangoes very well or bananas, but pretty much everything, or rice.
Oh, we do truffle.
We can do most other things. So I'm very enthused about what you guys are doing. I'm thrilled that we've sort of we've got to this point where we're on board with your supporting the forum and you're supporting the podcast, and that's a really good example of what we're all trying to do, isn't it? It's like, what are we good at, and how can we support each other? Is there anything else? Any other things you want to sort of leave with there, Jarrod? We'll get the show notes up with the links to the bookings and any other links. we'll make reference to Southern Harvest Food Co-op if you'd like in the show notes. Anyone else, we'll get in touch later and just make sure we've got all the right handles and everything. But yeah, very pumped to get this season 9 out.
Yeah. I guess the one of the organisation which we've been working with, and Jenny Bell is part of this, is the Earth Canvas. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's they're just fabulous. So we're working with that Lifeblood artist that we've mentioned, but Earth Canvas are a fabulous organisation that trying to support support the storytelling, which is so important for us.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, and I mean that in itself's a lovely thing to actually bring some culture and some artistry and some, that's often missing in farms. And I say that with all due respect because we're busy doing stuff. But in terms of, stopping and enjoying and capturing the beauty in farming and the produce and the creativity that's involved, and then which is really about how we strengthen our culture. I think having that sort of element. There's some other great people around the region who are doing amazing things. I know with sculptures in paddocks and turning farms and paddocks into galleries essentially, and all the variations in between. So, no, Jarrod, I'm really, really pleased to have had the chat. Looking forward to rolling out season 9 with your help and supporting you guys. And just for the listeners, in our season, the episodes you can expect. I did interview Dan Kettridge, you mentioned him before. Tammy, this all happened down at Grounded in Tasmania in early December. Tammy, who else was there? There's a few others there in your group there. I'm going to forget them now. It's terrible. But we've got some. But they all relate to what you guys are doing, because a lot of the guys I interviewed are actually doing this sort of stuff. Especially Tammy and Dan with his bionutrients and everything. It's just fascinating. So really good synergies between the episodes I captured there, 4 months ago, and what you guys are doing now. So it's awesome. Jarrod, looking forward to catching up with you in person at some point, talking more about tree guards and trees and dung beetles, and all the very best for the 2nd of March. 2nd of May. I know a couple of people just popping in my mind who I've recently had conversations about this very thing, about how to create some coordination with products and how do we get more direct to the eaters. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, fabulous. It's nice to be able to get together with you, Charlie, and we'll talk again soon. We'll
keep talking. You'll get to the farm, I'll get to Canberra. We'll make a few other things happen. Sounds great.
Sounds great. Okay.
Thanks, Jarrod. Bye.
Bye, mate.